The Atlanta Falcons are on the cusp of being a Super Bowl contender in the National Football League. They've officially made their statement, and this feels like the turning point victory for the Atlanta Falcons on Monday Night Football against the Buffalo Bills. What a performance on prime time for the entire world to see. The Atlanta Falcons are legit. Michael Penix Jr. is coming. You have Bijan Robinson putting on a unbelievable performance. Drake London does his thing, and this Falcons team continues to roll. They're above 500, and it doesn't feel like this team is getting the proper recognition and flowers that they deserve, and we'll dive right into it today to really see if this team is a true Super Bowl contender in a brutal NFC conference. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Caden Kubler, and thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I was blown away by this Monday Night Football performance from the Atlanta Falcons, and there's so much to take away from this game. Obviously, you had Bijan Robinson, who lit the NFL world on fire with 19 carries, 170 yards, and 1 touchdown on the ground, and he did it in the receiving game as well. The Atlanta Falcons could not stop getting him the ball. He had 6 receptions for 68 yards as well. He had over 230 scrimmage yards. What a game from Drake London. I was impressed by the performance of Michael Penix Jr. I really don't feel like Michael Penix Jr. gets enough credit and respect for the youth stage that he's at in his career. I mean, he's still only so young in his NFL career. He's only played 8 games in the National Football League, and I really do feel like we're seeing him take major strides. Now, yes, the touchdowns aren't there. He's only got 3 passing touchdowns, and we'll talk about Atlanta's offensive lulls at times, but they've looked better, and they're developing because they are such a young crew on that offensive side of the ball. But with Michael Penix Jr., he's only played 8 games in the NFL. He's looked good in specific over the last 2 games. And you look at a guy like Caleb Williams, who's now played 21 games, nearly triple the amount of games that Penix has played. Drake May has played 19 games in the NFL, and he's really taken a huge year 2 leap. That's over double the amount of games that Penix has played. And Bo Nix has played 22 games in the NFL. That is nearly triple as well. And I really don't feel like Penix is that far behind those quarterbacks in terms of the year 2 QBs that he was drafted around in that first round last season. So I feel like there's a lot more meat on the bone for Penix, and I really do believe that he's going to continue to take strides this year. And it's so important for him to take strides this year if this Falcons team is going to make a Super Bowl run, because you see them beat a team like Buffalo, who's been one of the top premier teams in the league over the last few years, and you feel really confident. You see Michael Penix Jr. making some big time throws. You see Bijan Robinson dominating a good defense, and you feel confident and say, okay, our offense, if they can play better and if Penix can come along for the ride, they can be up there with some of the best offenses in football. Now, defensively, they've been an unbelievable unit on the defensive side of the ball, and that has to do with Jeff Olberg, who was kicked out of New York last year. He now comes to Atlanta. There was a little bit of controversy at the beginning of the year with the whole draft thing that went on, but he has looked really good with this Falcons defense so far. They've been one of the best in the National Football League. They are giving up the fewest yards per game in all of football, and they are giving up the 7th fewest points per game in the National Football League as well. They are giving up 20 points per game. They've looked really good. They've got a lot of young talent on that defensive side of the ball, and you see Atlanta really stymie the offensive attack that Buffalo had on Monday Night Football, and you're like, man, I haven't seen a game like that from Josh Allen in a while. Now, he did throw 2 picks. That second one was kind of fluky at the very end there, but it's very rare that you see Josh Allen getting so frustrated, getting so demonstrative, and really looking like he had no answers for this Atlanta defense. Now, Atlanta offensively didn't do anything in the second half besides a field goal that really put the game away. The opportunities were there for Buffalo in the second half to really come back and try and win this thing, and Atlanta defensively looked great. They gave up nothing to these receivers. And I talked about it earlier when I was talking about Buffalo on Caden's Corner. That's a different video. You guys can go check that out. But I feel like Buffalo has too many wide receiver 2s and wide receiver 3s. And when you don't have guys that can create separation, you already have a tremendous secondary in Atlanta led by AJ Terrell, who looked unbelievable. This secondary is giving up the fewest passing yards per game at under 140. And you have an MVP candidate like Josh Allen, who only puts up 180 passing yards. You've got to feel like you're in a great spot on that side of the ball. They did a pretty good job against James Cook. He was able to burst a few, but overall, I think this Falcons defense, you can say they have a top 5 unit defensively in the NFL. Now, how does this team take that next Super Bowl step? Well, in my opinion, they've got to convert more with the offensive firepower that they have. Now, partially, some of that's going to come with the Michael Penix Jr. evolution that we will see. Only 8 games in the NFL. It is a long season, and Atlanta will have opportunities to win more football games. They are in a tough division, but the schedule will allow them to win some more football games, in my opinion. And I think Atlanta is a sneaky playoff team. But in terms of them actually being a team that can go on a run with the amount of talent they have, they've got to convert more. They've got to convert. They are averaging the second most yards per game in total in the NFL. They have the most rushing yards per game in football as well. The passing yards will get up there. And when they do, that is going to help this offense for sure. But I look at this team in terms of scoring points. They are scoring, ladies and gentlemen, the 6th fewest points per game in football. They are only scoring 20 points per game in the National Football League with the 2nd most yards per game. That's not going to get it done. You've got to convert more. You're getting all these yards. You're getting all of these other stats. You're getting all of these yards. You're getting down in the red zone. You've got to be able to convert if you're Atlanta. You cannot just get down there and kick field goals. And I know this team right now could be saying, well, we should realistically be 4-1 if we hadn't have lost to Tampa Bay because they missed that kick to ultimately send it to overtime. And they had a lead late as well, and they ultimately choked that one. Carolina, I really think that was fluky. And that Minnesota team in week 2 is a big victory. They've got some good wins. I know Washington didn't have Jaden Daniels, but it was Mariota, and Mariota is playing at a high level. This team right now has some really solid wins. Minnesota won 14 games last year. Washington, NFC Championship team. Buffalo, obviously one of the best teams in football. They've got a big opportunity this weekend again on primetime Sunday Night Football against the San Francisco 49ers, who've had a really solid defense. They won't have Fred Warner. But how can Michael Penix Jr. continue to stay confident? How can he continue to take strides as a passer? Because if he can do so, if he can build that consistency, I'm looking at a back half of the schedule that they're going to need to win some football games. You're going to see Seattle in the final 5 weeks of the season. You're going to go on the road against Tampa Bay. You're going to go on the road against Arizona, and you're going to have the Los Angeles Rams at home. Those are 4 tough games. I know Arizona is not maybe the best team in football, but going on the road, that's a game that you can lose if you're not playing at your full potential. 3 out of 4 games where you're going to see these teams all in the playoffs. Atlanta needs to heat up, and they need Michael Penix Jr. to take that next step. But if you're looking for that, this was a great sign for him. I've been really loving what I'm seeing from him. He's got great playmakers around him. This Atlanta team is going to be just fine. And I do believe that if Penix can come along for the ride, have that stride midway through the year, this Falcons team is on the cusp of being a Super Bowl contender. I'm Caden Kubler, and thank you guys so much for watching.